Hello there. Well, I bring you another proud acquisition. Ha 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 ha. 1987 Ford Carfax book. Oh, yeah. And I had got this one at a pretty good deal, actually. Normally, these guys would sell for about $100 a pop. $100 being you get the whole binder and all the correct contents of. So anywhere from 90 to $120 after shipping is about what you'd be expecting to pay for these guys. I'd gotten this one for only 40 something, and I'm delighted because it's almost perfect. There's very few flaws. There's a couple printing issues, but nothing to complain about. And wear wise, I don't think anyone's ever opened this thing up. So, what exactly is this before I get too far? Well, like the title cover would suggest, and it's not perfect. This is an interesting font style compared to other years. This is the one for 1988. Each year is a little unique from the others, but they're all basically the same size. They're all the same name, that's for sure. And they're more or less in the same layout as far as the contents go. And then usually there's a separate Mercury one for the Ford ones. But these Ford ones, they only seem to go from the earlier mid 70s, and then they stopped in the late 80s, early 90s. So like I'm pretty sure these do not exist as like 95 and afterwards. You won't find these. So let's pop this open. General information, that's where it starts. So what these cover is every car in the lineup that wears a blue oval. If you have the Mercury version, it's going to be every Mercury. As far as the 80s go, it'll be every Mercury and every Lincoln offered that year. So general information starts with the table of contents right off the bat, so you can reach each of the sections of the book that you're after. Note how it says tab here and not page. There's various tabs along the side here. I'll try getting the camera to look at it. You can see there's a whole bunch of tabs, and as you peel down, you'll see more and more and more. And then it's the last couple tabs that will list things like the exterior and interior colors. That's the color and trim. Powertrains will list up like all the engines, transmissions. So if your buyer was, for instance, pretending you're a car salesman at the time, new Ford dealer salesman, and someone walks in and says, "Hey, I want a V8 car," you can say, "Well, I got just the thing for you. Let me look at my powertrains tab and let's see. What kind of V8 would you want? We have the 5.0, we have the 5.0, and we have the 5.8. Holy crap. There's a 5.8 V8 in here. That's news to me. 1987? Well, that would have to be the 351, right? Right? I'm not a V8. I'm not a V8 guy. I'm not in tune with that kind of stuff. I focus on the cars I focus on. Anywho, so you'd be able to go to each of these categories and then study the car, study your client base, or your customer base, whatever you want to call it, and then you can naturally get down into the options and then the pricing. These books don't really focus on pricing, but there are supplements for these. For the most part, they're little I'll say catalog books. Pocket books is the better word for it. Little pocket books like so. They're pretty small. You can see this one's a little wider than a banker's check, but not as long. And you pop that open, and that's how you get pricings for all of your options, the base car itself, different trim levels, yada yada yada. Very fascinating stuff, and it does a good breakdown for all of the options available for all these cars, as well as what kind of delivery fees you can expect. where you need things like the high altitude packages, things of that nature. This will do the same thing, just without all the pricing, and it's very detailed, very in-depth. Like those pricing books, they won't give you a list of every color you can have it in. But if one of those colors is more expensive than some of the other ones, it will say, hey, keep an eye out for other colors at extra cost. So it brings things like that to your attention. This, however, is a complete comprehensive review of the entire car from top to bottom. Here's the introduction. We'll read this together here. 1987 Full Carfax book is designed to provide you with easy access to product information on Ford Division cars. To make it a more effective, easier to use sales tool, illustrations of interiors, instrument panels, luggage cargo areas may be located in individual car line sections. Carline Facts book features a fresh look. The copy and charts are designed for readability and easy reference. And there's a key product features page in each of the Carline sections, which presents a brief overview of product highlights. Familiarize yourself with the information and organization of the 1987 Carfax book, which is the whole binder. New features and or additions have been a direct result of dealer, sales manager, and sales personnel surveys and panel sessions. When properly utilized and maintained, we believe that you will find the Carfax book to be a valuable sales tool in your daily selling efforts. And it talks about the organization here. General information, that's the first section. That's what we're in. Then we get into some of the bragging rights, as I call it. And then you finally get into the car lines. And then each car line is going to have one of these: model and series availability. So like in the case of the Escort, you'll see Escort, and then the number of bodies next to it. The two-door coupe, the four-door sedan, the 4 or 5-door wagon, whatever you want to call it, the station wagon, and the EXP. And then you will also see each of the trims for those cars. Then you will finally get an overview of the product. What kind of size of it, what's the wheelbase, things like that. Anything new for this year. And it's not just what's new. They thoroughly list out what we've added to the car, what we've removed from the car, and what we've changed. It's all very concise, which makes these very good reading material. Key product features. So in the case of like the Escort GT, it focuses on the handling aspect of the car, the manual transmission, the 5-speed. And then with the top of the line 1.9 EFI high output engine. Those are all very important things. Furthermore, it would be like the sports seats, some interior features that set it apart from not just the other Escorts, but the other cars that Ford offers. Some of these will actually even include comps pages. Depending on your book, they'll be located in different parts. Some of the books will include them towards the end of each car's tab, like for the Crown Victoria tab. Towards the end of this Crown Vic tab, there would be a section where it compares Crown Victorias to like Caprices, similar comparable cars. But other books, they'll put those towards the absolute end, like down here where it says trailer and towing, so outside of the normal car stuff. And here you can actually see that they have the EPA fuel economy versus competition. So the pages following this will actually have some comparisons. Standard equipment summary. So you'll get a list of all the standard equipment for each and every trim and body style, as well as shortly after each of those, you get a rundown of all the optional equipment and the availability of it. Power team, so your engine and transmission, optional equipment, mentioned that. General specifications. So after you've seen all the options, then you get general specifications of, hey, this is what the gas tank holds. These are the size of all the brakes. This is the size of all of your tire options. This is the wheelbase. This is the width. This is the track. This is the car's total height. This is the curb weight. Things of that nature. Anything you can write about the car on paper will be in there. Wheels and wheel covers, it's kind of part of general specifications. Instrument panel, it's pretty cool. At towards the end of each chapter, it'll actually show a very good 2D drawing, or maybe not drawing, rendering of each dashboard, and it'll identify every different component on there. And then as far as like the Crown Victoria tab, you'll actually see a police and taxi package information section within the Crown Vic tab, but you obviously won't see that in the Escort tab. And depending on the year of book you're looking at, the Escort will encompass the EXP. But the earliest ones, like if you have the 1982 book, I'm pretty sure the EXP has its own tab, like it does in the other literature. From 82 to 83, the EXP was separate from all of the Escorts. But for sure, in 1986, they combined them completely. And it's even reflective in production numbers. They just merged them together. The even official name had changed from Ford EXP to Ford Escort EXP. So for all of these 86 on up books, you'll see not EXP tab, but instead an Escort tab. And just know that your EXP will be a body style within it. We'll go just one more page before we snip back. Here you go. Body, EXP. It's noted separate in here, but not listed entirely separate. But anywho, that's pretty much what you're going to see is, underneath every tab here. And then we finally get into an index, what you can see. More bragging stuff from Ford. The quality is job one, their mantra. And some of the computer systems, the corrosion protection that they put in some of these cars. Supposedly all of them, but I think it was focused more on a specific number of platforms. But it would be the galvanization of body panels so that they rust later in life. And it's part of the priming and paint process too. They brag about a unique primer that they use in these cars, and then talk about some of the paint processes. Some of it's, well, for the most part, it's single stage paint. But some of these do have 2 layers where there'll be like any metallic paint color in here. They lay 1 layer of the metallic paint. So like, if you have a blue metallic car, they lay down a layer of silver metallic, and then they go over blue with that, kind of like a blue single stage. Some of these will even actually have a layer of clear coat on top of those 2 prior stages. That's where the extra money really kicks in. And now more bragging rights stuff, more overview, but for the most part, the individual pieces of these will be underneath each car. So let us move ahead. We'll find the Escort tab. Here we are. Gives a nice photo of a 1987 Escort GT front and center. And it talks about it. Hey, the product. Okay, we're talking about Ford Escorts. What are those? Those are compact cars. They talk about, they dedicate some space and time for what was new with this new year. What we changed, kept, removed, and added to. They bring up all of that in pretty good detail. I gotta say, it's pretty impressive. And then they go through and they talk about each of the specifics in the order we had mentioned a little bit ago. But this is kind of how you'll be seeing it. And then a little side note here at the bottom talks about some of the revisions. All significant revisions and additions are printed in red ink. So anything you see in red is new for this year or changed for this specific date production book. So you can see this is 1186. This is probably one of the last revisions for 87. You might find a copy of this book that's dated like 7 of 86, July of 86 for 87 models. But I believe this would be one of the latest ones. We get into model series availability here, and it lists all the different body styles. It doesn't list the EXP separate in this section, but it lists it under two-door hatchback, even though it does not share the body style of the normal Escort. And then each trim level has its VIN number code, the VIN code, beside it. So if you were looking at the VIN for your 1987 Escort pony, you'll see, I think it's the 4th through 7th digits, or 4th through 6th digits. It will be a P20 if you have a pony, a P21 if you have a GL, each two-door, but like a P28 if you have a four-door wagon, or if you have like a P17, it's going to be a Ford EXP luxury coupe. And it talks about the product overall. Again, some bragging stuff. It talks very briefly about some of the major options, like the engine and transmission combos you can have. It talks about some of the new safety features, like 87 is when they had first implemented the automatic shoulder belt. This is the one that it's automatic. It's run on a track on the motor. It goes up and down the A-pillars of the car. EXPs do not have that. The EXPs never changed drastically like that from 81 to 88. No interior component changed outside of what was compatible with the Escort. What's new for 87? Well, they discontinued the LX trim, so LX is gone. You now have Pony, GL, GT, or EXP trims. Yes, the Escort L gets redesignated to GL. So the LX is gone. The L moved up to GL. And then the Pony becomes the base car. Cheapity cheap. Functional changes, we're talking here now. They'd replaced all 1.9 carb engines for 1.9 CFI. So you can see 1.9 engine incorporates electronic fuel injection now. Again, the shoulder belts on all cars except for the EXP, like I said. Warning chimes now replace the buzzer in all the cars prior to this. When you have, say, the lights on with the key out, you would hear a piezo buzzer that warns you that you have a function on and the keys are not in ignition. Same thing if your keys are in the ignition, you have a door open. It will be a different buzzer at a different pitch, but it's still going to be a piezo going. They had changed those out for chimes. My 88 actually has these. It dings. It dings like a modern car would. Or I say modern. It dings like a car from the 90s would. You would get a ding, 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 ding instead of. Optional automatic transmission adopts split long pinion planetary gears along with fine pitch final gears. So this is something I'd seen. It was a footnote somewhere, but they had changed the automatic slightly for 1987. And I think it had also changed the final drive ratio by like not a lot. They probably cut one tooth off or added a tooth. Partly to make it quieter, because if you made your teeth closer together, it's going to be more quiet. But I daily drove an 81 automatic all of this winter, and the transmission was the least of the sounds. But so that did probably change the final drive. Optional diesel engine available in California. Before, you could not get the diesel in a California emissions car. That's an important note, one I had never realized or heard of. Upgraded battery usage on most models. Yep, they had upgraded most of the batteries across the board. Exterior changes, we now have dual electric remote control mirrors that are standard on the GT and EXP Sport. And then they're optional on every model except the pony trim. So only the pony is going to have remote mirrors, like this here. That is a remote mirror. So it's all manual. It's not electric. There's also the cheap mirror. It's like a shaving mirror. you reach out the window, you position it with your hand, and then hope it stays there. That's your cheap mirror. That's what all the ponies will have as standard. 5 new exterior colors. Yep, some of the colors are different than 86. So that is important to note. Colored keyed grille replaces the black grill and pony and GL series. So for 85.5 and 86, the cheapest Escorts, the grill would be black, like either a gloss or flat black. I don't remember which. But for 80s, regardless of the body color, but in 87, these grills would all match, the rest of the body, the rest of the color of the car's body, and it would stay like that until the cars were done. Except on the pony. The ponies, those are still black, with the rest of the car being color. Oh, I'm sorry. It does include the pony, so even the ponies have the color-matched grille. Interior-wise, vinyl replaces cloth on the fold-down armrest. That's one of the changes. That had switched the armrest from being the thick pad to the very slim wedge. So that's a 1987 thing. Someone had asked me about that. Yellow arches in the instrument graphics are replaced with conventional white on the GT and EXP. So it had been like that for a while, actually. The 82 EXPs and GTs, they have unique gauge cluster colors. But for 83, they turned yellow, and they stayed yellow all the way until 87 came, I guess. Instrument panel and consolette colors are revised to reduce windshield reflectivity. So, instrument panel, it says that. I'm wondering if it means dashboard. But the console and consolette colors, I really don't know what they're talking about there. It has to be the plastic, the color of the plastic of the majority of each of those things. But they're just colored to match the dashboard. So maybe they had gone for a completely matte paint or matte finish instead of the satin or semi-gloss that they appear to be in most of the other cars. They had revised the AM radio to what I don't know. I'd have to see photos, but I think 87 had started the single DIN radios, unless that had started in 85. I know 84s are dual dials. Side seat facing and bolster materials are revised on the EXPs. Minor appearance change. It's true. Very minor. You'd have to see them side by side to notice the difference. All premium radios are now electronic. So there's no... I think before they would have just been solid state. Now they're electronic. Essentially digital. So you'll have like a scan mode. Things like that. Auto-tune. Split fold rear seat now a freestanding option. So before... so for like the 86 GT, you could have a split folding bench, but all other cars, it was just a one-piece bench that would fold down. So now you'd actually have a split folding bench as an option in all the other cars except the EXP, which no rear seats. Fold down center armrest, now a freestanding option. Again, standard on EXPs. Heavy duty battery revised to 58 amp hour. Yes, you'll see that in here. You will actually see that in here. Somewhere in here, I think it says that there's a 48 amp hour battery in like the Pony or something. Two-tone paint is on all Escorts. The two-tone paint that was on all Escorts is now revised to eliminate tape, which separates colors. So, like the 84 and 85 turbos, there would be a two-tone paint like this. Tape, a two-tone tape, and that would separate, it would create a seam between the lower paint job and the upper paint job. So they had to remove that tape. Engine block heater becomes available with the Pony. Yeah, so if you had a base car, you weren't getting a block heater from the factory, but you could get it from the dealer. That is now a factory option. Pivoting vent windows require tinted glass in addition to powered dual remote control mirrors. So now any pivoting vent windows, which were still available in 87, so you can see here, they're now all tinted from the get-go, and they require a dual remote control mirrors, so electric mirrors. Optional vinyl trim has been replaced with common So style on Pony and GL. Yep, so they kind of consolidated a few seat patterns. Console dropped as freestanding option except on EXP Luxury Coupe. So if your car doesn't have a console with the trim, like I think the only way you can get a full console is through the GL and GT. But even then, I don't think the GL's got them. So GT and then the EXP Sport Coupes would have them. But they had removed it from an option of all the other cars. Except, if you have an EXP Luxury Coupe, you could still opt to have the full console. I'd recently seen an EXP Luxury Coupe, extremely low miles, and someone opted for that center console. That was a extra option. Key product features. This is something really special here. This is something rare of Ford to do. Actually produce Escort sales figures. So from 81 to 85, these are the Escort sales. And these numbers here are important because for these numbers, they do not combine the EXPs with the Escorts. And that's something they kind of done started 1986. 1987 for sure. Somewhere between 86 and 87, they started combining Escorts and EXPs in these numbers. So then figuring out how many EXPs were made is impossible outside of getting a Marty report. I will soon get one, and we will know for sure. It talks about some of the interior features from afar. Again, more bragging stuff. I'm talking about some more of the refinements and performance. It slowly gives you little snippets, photos, and features and whatnot. And talks a lot about the automatic belt restraints because that is new. And there it is. And there's also that new armrest, the wedge. Talks about some of the engineering, most of which is that seatbelt. So otherwise, from 86 to 87, not much changed. The seatbelt, the CFI engine, things like that. So now we talk about the Pony and most of the major things with this car. Nothing too crazy because it is just a Pony. And we talk about the GL, and it'll actually compare the GL to the Pony. So you get an AM radio with 2 front mount speakers. The Pony, I'm looking at it here. No radio in the Pony? Oh, good grief. I don't think there's a radio in the Pony. Oh my god. Yep, here we go. The 48 amp hour battery in the Pony I'd mentioned. Yeah. It talks about some of the interior on the GL. You can see the GL has fancy wheels. These are the shaver mirrors I was talking about on the Pony. They look very different. GT, here we go. This is where most of the magic happens. As far as the early cars go, like 81 through 83, you could have a really well optioned Escort and it not be the GT or the SS. You could have a very well optioned one that isn't focused solely on performance. But that had kind of gone away. The economy car became more economical, and the performance variations became more performance oriented. And it talks about that here. But basically, as far as 86 versus 87 goes, there was no major change for the GT, and it's reflective here. Everything's the same, except for like the colors of the instrument cluster. It changed some, like we mentioned earlier. Now electronic radio. EXP bingo. This is where we'll spend a lot of my attention. Will go here. It talks about a lot of it here. Again, a 48 amp hour battery. 48 amp battery, while the GT gets a 58. But this is a luxury coupe. This isn't the sport coupe. 3-point manual front safety belts. I don't know why that's put in red here. That's just a carryover from all the prior years. It talks about other identifying features, and then we get to the sport coupe. The only difference is some of the body molding, the engine, and the heavy duty battery, a better suspension. You get a rear anti-roll bar, things like that. But this is, now we're finally at the equipment comparison table here, where you can actually see the standard equipment side by side across all these cars. And unlike 84 and 85, the EXPs are pretty well equipped. 84 and 85 are definitely a dark era for EXPs. But 86 rolled around, brought a lot of options back as standard equipment like they should have been. And because of that, now they're checking a lot of boxes that otherwise most of these would be blank. The EXP option list would be about as blank as the Pony would be. Now we're finally at the last of the standard equipment summary. Again, you're welcome to pause this at any point here. I try keeping the camera steady so that you can review this. For those of you about to ask, this is not available on the Ford Heritage website as of right now. Oh man, look at that. Even more standard equipment. Actually see that here. 13-gallon fuel tank, standard across the board. Or so it says. We'll be looking through the rest of this one. I'm pretty sure this one or my 88 one said that 10-gallon fuel tank came back for the Pony. Engine transmission options. Okay, this part's important here. Why, you ask? Well, because don't think too hard about this, okay? It says 1.9 EFI. This is the CFI engine, both of these. So you could have the 4-speed manual. You could have a 4-speed manual of a different final drive. You could have a 5-speed manual. Here's then 1.9 CFI with automatic transmission. I thought this year you could get the automatic, but with EFI high output. That must have been only 86 then. For the first year or two of the 1.9 EFI high output, you could actually get an automatic car and automatic transmission in the Escort GT. And guess how many of those they made? Like 7. It was less than 10. I'm pretty sure it was 7 or 8. So 7 automatic Escort GTs were made. Yeah, pretty rare. But you can see that was not the case here. For 87, they had axed that. After selling all 7, they didn't think it was worth changing the line just for that. So they were able to streamline a few things. Again, more interior and exterior options here. And they put order codes next to each of these, which is pretty neat and very handy because you can actually take each of these order codes, throw them into that little price book, pocket book I showed you. You can actually see what each of these prices are. And then if you had, if you have, say, the window sticker for any of these cars or the build sheet, you're going to see these 3-digit codes. Some of them are just 2-digit codes. They'll pop up where relevant, and you'll be able to see. Oh, okay, yeah. This part of my build sheet, I have a 628. Oh, yeah. So this is what I have for mirrors. Huh. Painted mirrors. It goes on. It's a long list of options, mostly because the Escort's included. When we get to like the EXP alone in the 84 to 85, it's a very small option list. In 82 and 83, it's a big option list, but the EXP is all by itself, so it's more compact than this because a lot of the Escort options are standard on the early EXPs. Your early EXPs are loaded Escorts for the most part. We finally get into some of the dimensions here. You actually see like the EXP is the longest car out of all of them. Yes, even half an inch longer than the wagon. Things like that. Next page, there will be a few more dimensions here. Cargo capacity. It doesn't say it. Oh, it does for the EXP at 31.5 cubic feet versus the almost 60 in the wagon. The wagon is pretty impressive. I can't understate that. It's pretty impressive. You can see there's 13-gallon fuel tanks across the board. That was a good change they made. Years prior, you'd have a 10 depending on your option or your body style. And then for 88, they make it so that the ponies still have a 10-gallon tank. All the others have 13s. Steering specifications is kind of interesting. Your steering ratio on your manual rack is longer than it is on the power rack. So your power rack will have quicker steering. But it's a double-edged sword because the power steering is no easier to turn than the manual steering. But when it's cold, the power steering sucks. That is just terrible. Not only it's hard to turn until it's pretty warm, but also when it's cold, there's so much resistance from the fluid just in the pump that it tries stalling out your engine. It's a lot of load. So, oof to power. Manual steering is where it's at, even though that ratio is not as quick as it could be. Turning diameter, same across all the cars because they're all the same. Steering turns locks from lock to lock. Yeah, the manuals do turn slightly more. It's reflective by the steering ratio. Then here's all the brake measurements. This is where some things get pretty fascinating. So we've been trying to nail down, okay, which of all the Escorts have 7-inch drums and which of all the Escorts have the 8-inch drums. Well, there's a few commodities to this here. So it lists the two doors all having the 7-inch drum, and all the 4 doors and the wagons having 8-inch drums, and EXPs always have the 8-inch. But it's not saying that the GT has 8 inches. That's indeed the case. All GTs will have the 8-inch. All the wagons will have the 8-inch. It's the 2-door non-GTs and then the 4 doors. A lot of them will only have 7s. So that's something to look out for. And this book doesn't do a definitive job of explaining that. But I bet it's because it varied by option or trim. Okay, finally get into transmission gear options here, and there's a bunch. At this point in time, Ford's playing around a lot with fuel economy, so you're getting a lot of fuel saver combinations. Excuse me. Yeah, because like the normal 1.9 engine you can get with a 3-speed auto, 2 different 4-speeds, or a 5-speed. And most of it's just based towards, hey, do you want your fuel economy good, or you want it really good, or you just want performance, or does your left foot not work and you need an automatic? That's kind of what all that boils down to. But that's the end of the Escort chapter. So we will skip ahead a bit and go to the power and trim. So here you can actually see all the colors, as well as what vehicles they would go on. Yeah. So any with a 6 below would be a color available on the Escort. It's pretty handy, and these are actually pretty good paint chips. It's just I have poor lighting in this late winter afternoon. It's not showing all these as great as they could be, but they are complete and they're in fantastic shape. So very, very useful. And it will have just like the rest of the book, it'll have an asterisk next to any new color for this year. And then for any that are interested, I do compile all these interior and exterior options inside my EXP and Escort Everything Google Drive spreadsheet. It's a complete, comprehensive culmination of every piece of EXP and Escort information I can find and compile. Things like this, where we actually can line up colors, interior and out exterior, as well as seat types, things of that nature, so that you can decode the body tag on your car, or the door sticker or the window sticker, whatever, and see what your car is supposed to have. Break it down, because a lot of these cars have been repainted, you know. Okay, so the Thunderbird section, Tempo, Mustang, Escorts after Mustang. The Mustang has a lot going on. It had a number of body styles as well. Here we go, down to the Escort. And just like before, it does list the EXP with it. Not entirely separate, but with it. And I won't talk about this too much, because like I said, I do have it all in the, and that was the end of it. I have it all inside my comparison chart, the spreadsheet. And we won't spend too much time inside the engine section of things, but we will look at it briefly because it does relate to us. So pages 2, 3, and 4. Well, that was quick. Right off the bat, we're just going straight to the 1.9 CFI. It is actually the smallest engine in Ford's lineup at this point, because the Festiva has not come out yet. It'll be next year, 1988. So yes, that is the smallest engine, the weakest engine, but it actually had a pretty impressive 90 horsepower. The 2.3 and an automatic Mustang. It would only have like 100, like 108, 105. It's pretty pathetic. And as a result, its 0 to 60 time is worse than a 1.6 EXP with an automatic transmission. Woof. We talk about the 1.9 EFI high output. And at this point in time, 1987, all camshafts are supposed to be hydraulic roller, but that's not strictly the case. As far as the CFIs go, this is the case. Any CFI engine, you should be seeing hydraulic lower lifters. And then for the 1.9 EFI high output, roller lifters and the matching cam will really only show up for 89 or 1988 and a half. Even though here it says hydraulic roller, Doesn't quite seem to be the case. We can only promise that they'll be in the last 2 years of the car. But it'll list out all of them for all the cars, as well as a photo of each car that you would find them in. It gets into some of the technologies within each of these engines. Yeah, it talks about some of the turbo magic in these, some of the different transmissions that they're using. Powertrain specifications. We can even get into, hey, what's the oil capacity of some of these things? Oh, a lot of very, very detailed information about the insides of all these engines. It's pretty much astonishing. It's a sight to see. But I think that, yep, that pretty much does it. This is kind of just the index section of the whole book. So in the index section, if you wanted to figure out, hey, which cars actually had digital clocks? Oh, Escort, Thunderbird, and Taurus. Oh, yeah, I think just those. And then you can go to the pages that they appear on. Same with the trailer towing system tab and instrumentation group. It's mostly just index. A little bit of glossary. But yeah, it's I think that's about it for this thing. It's been super useful for me as I add more to my comparison spreadsheet. I'll try to put a link to that in this description because it's become a lot more full with all of these exterior color codes and the interior color and seat codes. Those are primarily what I'm missing to complete my door sticker breakdowns. I have everything else. It's just nailing down some of these last couple options here so that when someone looks at a door sticker, they can say, oh, yep, okay, that is not a aftermarket sunroof. That is a factory sunroof. And that is factory cruise control. That's someone put in a premium sound. It's supposed to be just the plain AM or a plain stereo. Things like that. It's very useful for me in that sense because I have so many of these cars. So many. I have 22 of these and counting. We got more coming this year. So it's been very handy figuring out, okay, which of these cars have what? Which of these cars is, with this information, which of these cars is more rare? With that information, okay, which of these cars do I need to be saving first? Which of these can basically only be parts cars? Yada, yada, yada. As I go forward and try evaluating these. And a lot of you can be doing the same. As years go on, I see more people buying parts cars to help save their favorite ones. And some people will actually go out to buy one and then a day later see one or two more for sale, and they just fetch all three of them. And when they get home, they sit down and try to figure out, okay, out of these three cars, I got enough parts to get two of them working for sure. Which two do I go with out of, here are the options they have. This is their trim levels. And out of the three of them, this is the body style I prefer. There's a lot of interchangeability, but if you know what you want and how to get there to begin with, doing all that's going to be a lot easier. And having things like these books make that much easier. But then also for me, I used to reproduce window stickers for these cars, for the 80s Escorts and EXPs. I even made a Mustang one once. And they're perfect replicas, absolutely perfect. Marty Auto Works would be jealous of these things. They are perfect. But as far as the later years go, I have almost all the information I could ever need to make one for 81 through 84. But these older cars, being I don't have very many of myself, I'm reliant on literature. And I don't have much for literature, so I'm not forced to go out and get these binders. But we're getting there. These cars go from 81 to 90, and so far I have 87 and 88. I'm going to be looking around soon. I want an 83 really bad. That is the year of EXPs with the most options you could get on an EXP. It's the best year for Escorts and EXPs by far, option-wise. 83. The next one would be 84. 84 started so many changes for all these cars. And then 85 and a half or 86. That was the next biggest set of changes. And another one being 88 and a half, which is inside this one. It shows the final iteration of the Escort, the final big change. So a lot of that stuff is important, especially as these years went on. There was less and less literature. Like I said, 84 and 85, nothing. You get a very thin pamphlet of, hey, this is the car you're looking at, and here's what to expect from it. Here's a photo. And I've had better pamphlets from elementary school Christmas concerts. I'm being serious. The stuff like this really bridges the gap in that sense, especially when my physical examples of these cars are so bare and minimal. Oh, base model EXPs from 84 and 85. Oh, it's a stain on the EXP name. So trying to make the best use out of these I can. It would be sweet if Ford Heritage Site gets a hold of these and starts putting them online, because then you'd have full unhindered access to them. I have no problem getting these around for your free viewing. That doesn't bug me at all. I've jumped through more hoops than that for you to have free viewing of anything, but it's a lot of work. I'd mostly a lot of money. I'd have to take this in, have all these pages scanned, because I know I don't have time for it, and I don't have scanner access on that kind of scale. So I'd have to visit somebody, have all these scanned in, uploaded to a flash drive, bring that home, upload that onto the drive, and there'd be this massive file. And then you really want to do something so that you can do some sort of word search on there. So if you want to look up, EXP center armrest, you can actually go and find it versus scrolling, Limp Bizkit, scrolling, you know. But speaking of rambling, I've rambled plenty. This is pretty cool. If you have the opportunity to get a hold of one of these for your year of car, and again, they cover every car that Ford made that year. They do have one for trucks too. It'll say like if we're looking at 87 still, it'd say 87 Ford trucks facts book, and those would be available too. But very handy so long as you have the right one for your year. It's super cool seeing what the differences are before, during, and after your year. Then all of the options that are mentioned maybe in the yearly brochure, but so much more detail in these. But I guess I should let you all go. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to say so, and I will address them as able. Thank you.